All right, we're going to get started here with the last session of the day. Go ahead and hand it over to Diane Bishop, who's going to talk all about GP workflows. Diane?
I got it. Let me share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Good, thank you. Okay, my name is Diane Bishop, and I am the GP director here at Turnkey, and I'm new to Turnkey, but not new to the job. I have been working with GP since, I'll tell you because it'll date me, but anyway, it's been a while, been 25 plus years. So as a matter of fact, I wanted to speak to that a little bit. With our team, we probably have over 300 years of experience in GP itself. All of our GP consultants are experienced, seasoned consultants who have every heart to make sure that you guys are happy. I mean, that's our goal because we've been in this long enough to know what it's like when you're not. So having said that, I'm going to get started. It's all about workflows. Feel free to put any questions up in the chat and Michael will be able to get them for you. So this is GP workflows. Okay, there are some requirements that you need in GP for workflow to work. If you want email notifications, you're going to have an email set up. You need an email that's set up within the system. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And you're going to need web services installed. And you're going to need one email account for workflow in order to get this done. So that's one of the requirements. And on each of these slides, I've put a path down here so you know where to go to access this information. There's been a lot of improvements in the workflow system in GP. Number one, they've added it to where you can use the web client to approve or even create workflows. This is because everything is moving to the cloud, and they wanted to make sure that workflows eventually could be put into the cloud and function there. They were using SharePoint a lot. It was the basis for the workflow engine. A lot of integration went between SharePoint and GP workflows. And this caused a lot of problems even for the entire system. So what they did this time is remove the SharePoint dependency, and they created the workflow engines elsewhere. Don't ask me where. I don't know. I don't get into that. Anyway, and another thing they did was the designer was also in SharePoint. So they've moved it out on its own and created one all by itself. So that makes the design easier to use. So creating your designs has been an improved process. They've also increased flexibility. And what this means is they have added more workflow types, the ability to make your own workflows, and to modify the existing workflow types out of the box. The first place we're going to start is the GP workflow maintenance. You have 3 levels of maintenance. You've got the workflow type, and you'll have document types for each of your documents. This is just to name a few: requisitions, purchase orders, sales orders. And the next, you have the workflow itself. And you can have an unlimited number of workflows for each of the types. And you just create several of them and you make it active. You can have unlimited number of steps. And what this means is the steps in the workflow. For requisitions, you've got the workflow, the vendor gets created by one person. As soon as that task is completed, it moves over to the department head for approval. If it's over a certain limit, It can go to the director of the department for approval. If not, it goes straight as an approved workflow, work requisition. So this is what it means by steps, and we'll get more into that as we go along. Here are your workflow types that you have right now. In finance, you have two. GL batch approval, you can create a workflow for that. GL account approval, if you're creating new accounts, you can set up an approval process for that. And I'm not going to go through every one of these, but take a minute to look at this because there's a lot of them compared to what there used to be. There were only 4 in the previous workflow setup. So you can see that this is really expanded. And there's even a Smart List Designer view approval. So if you created a Smart List, you can set up a workflow to say, okay, who has approval for, who has the rights to approve this workflow view, or Smart List view, sorry. So I'll give you just a second to look through these to see if any of them really hit your area of expertise. But there's a lot of. And next, we're going to create our workflow. And when we do, here is where you're going to create your workflow. And this too is under administration, workflow, and workflow setup. What happens here is you have some standard ones that are already created, but you can create your own. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do step by step. So you have on here, you have several options, and that's very important down here. You create your new workflow, and under this, I went for requisition 5, but you've got options, and what these mean is you check them off. You can send notifications for completed actions. You can allow the approver to delegate tasks to another user. You can allow the originator to be an approver. You can require at least one approver, or you can use an alternate final approval. For instance, if your approver, one of your approvers is out of the office, you can assign a final approver for that. Also, too, you can, if I show you this, when you send notifications for completed actions, down here you can notify the originator on several options. So you can notify them if the workflow's recalled, if you've escalated it, if you edited it, or if it was had a final approval. These messages are email messages, which I'll show you in just a bit, but they're email messages that are defaulted in the system. There's quite a few out of the box, but you can create your own, or you can modify the existing ones. But this is what's sent when the message is created. And you can also carbon copy someone if you want Sarah to see it. When a task is overdue, you've got several actions. You can take no action, just leave it. You can escalate it to the next approver. You can escalate to a certain user. And if it's overdue, you can automatically reject the overdue task. So you have quite a few options. And here's your active button. If this is the requisition you wanted to be active for that type, this is where you would select it. And here we have manager assignment. Each of the workflow types must have a manager. The manager administrates that workflow. They can override, they can approve it, they can create it, they can edit it, they can do anything. They have full rights to that workflow. So, and each type has to have one. It's mandatory. And here we have a workflow step. This is where we start setting up the steps of the workflow. For instance, if Ian, that just presented, has the right to create the requisition and pick the vendor, then this is where we would set up his step. or her step. I won't pick on it. So anyway, so we've got this. So what we would do is we've got our requisition. We're going to hit new step. And here we're going to create our first step, which is select vendor. And you tell it, this is a first step, or this step follows the selected step, so that you can have a hierarchy of steps. And you tell the system, is it a task or is it an approval? This is a task because Ian's going to select the vendor. So what happens is the action is always required for this step. Now you can put, is this step of the workflow required only when the following condition is met? And we'll see that in our second step. And you also have, down here, you've got an assignment. You go and pick your user, and that'll pop up in just a minute. And you can say how long the person has to approve this before it's overdue, basically. And if you notice here, apply workflow calendar. I'll explain this a bit in just a minute, but this does something really cool. And you can send a message to anyone here in any of the templates. And your completion policies, you tell the system, do I need only one response is needed? Do I need the majority must take? If you have 3 approvers, do you need 2 of them at least? Or all of them? So you've got completion policies that you can set up here. Now here's where you assign your user. When you go into user selection, you would have just clicked on the arrow or the down arrow of user assignment, and you can pick anyone in the system. You can start typing. You can go people and groups. You've got a hierarchy that you can look at. You can pick the direct manager. Say the workflow requisition is for Thomas to get a new laptop. Well, you could pick direct manager, and what that will do is that will go straight to his manager for approval. So you can add as many approvers as you want. Like I said, if you need more than one, you just select more than one. If you need a majority, if there's 3 here, all 3 would have to approve it. Here's the workflow calendar. Okay, remember how I said you can set the limit? Well, this tells the system, this is when we're working. We're working from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. However, over here, we can set days that we don't work, Christmas, New Year's Eve, etc. So what happens here, but say you set that at 3 o'clock on Friday and you set an 8-hour time limit. It doesn't go into Friday. What it will do is it will take 2 hours of Friday, and then on Monday will be the other 6 hours. So it only takes into consideration the time frame that you have. When we checked apply workflow calendar, that's exactly what it does. If you did not check that, it would expect you, if you did it at 3 o'clock on Friday, it would expect that to be approved sometime Saturday. Okay, and this is your email messages that are out of the box. Right here is where you set up all those messages that go to various people when they're getting notified, put it like this. And you've got a lot of message templates out of the box. Any of the ones that is included in the out of the box starts with the WF. Now, all of these messages can be modified. New messages can be created. You can add additional fields, and you can add an action button down to the message. And the action button, you can actually set up a hyperlink that says, approve this, and you can approve the workflow straight from the email message. You can also add hyperlinks. And we'll cover that a little bit more. We'll see more about that, but it makes it convenient if someone's out of the office and on the web client, they can just say approve. You can add information in these messages so that it's clear what their details about what they're trying to approve. Okay, here's your email message setup. You can add additional fields. You have two options. Now before, this is basically what everyone has seen in messages like for sales orders or sales statements, the messages you've seen. All of that is the same. You've got a standard up here, which is all of your prior messages that were set up in the system out of the box. And then you've got the workflow assignment, and you've got the workflow action completed. So you've got several options. These two are new to this version of GP workflow, and it was added so that people could just create workflow messages that was secular to the workflows. And again, like I said, you can add document lines for details right here. If you add the document lines, you'll be able to put in some information about what they are approving so they can approve it on the fly. Down here, you've got document fields. These fields this will show you any of the fields that's related to the document. Then you've got your workflow fields. This will show you any of the information that's pertinent to like a task deadline. It'll show, and it will show your company name, what it is. This is all documents, and then you can add the document lines from the workflow. And you can have replies sent and select the names, whoever you want it to reply to. Here is a perfect example of the workflow fields. As you can see, you can have the workflow manager, the name, the origin, the document ID, any comments that was made, and you can have this the document lines in here to show even more detail. This is the body, and this is where we add the document lines. Okay, so now we've got conditions, assignments, order, and completions. What this is, we've got our conditions set here. And if we set up, say, Ian can't approve anything over $5,000. If that's the case, it has to go to Thomas. So I could set that up in here and have an action. This is my second step. And what it will do is it's going to follow the select vendor. So, and it's an approval, and an action is always required for the step. So right now we have no condition. What it's going to do, Phyllis must approve if it's greater than 5,000, but let's assume it's not. So now, right now, it's going to, Ian can approve it. Or actually, Ian selected the vendor. Now Thomas can approve it if he sends it to him. And we only need one response. So you see how these steps work? Now then, I'll show you the editor, how we fix these. Okay, right here, we have all of this is the workflow condition editor. This is where we add our conditions, I'm sorry. If we say we want, someone can only approve an item number or the amount or anything that's in here, and there's an extended list, quite a few. Although I can tell you right now, they've limited some of this so that you don't get confused. But over here is a checkbox that says display extended field list. If you don't find what you want in here, you can click on there and it'll show you the full list. And basically you just say, for instance, extended cost is greater than or equal to 5,000. And that would shoot this workflow to the next step. It would add the condition in here, and you'll see it in a minute. And here we go. Oops. Click too fast. Here we go. This is the condition. where a purchase requisition work document is greater than and includes 5,000. This shows that it's going to another approver, because the person, and I should explain that each of these users are Active Directory users. And that they did that this time because they wanted to allow people outside of GP that did not have a GP license to be able to look into and work with and interface with the workflows. For instance, if you've got a CEO that doesn't really need a GP license, then he could still get and approve workflows. So that's why it looks to the AD for the user. Also, too, you set up the permissions of what each user can do. So, and the system looks at that. So as soon as it sees that it's Thomas, the limits have been set for Thomas so that he can approve something over 5,000, then, hey, it knows instantly he can do that. He looks at the files that are available to the document, whatever that person is able to do. Now, another thing you can do here is you can compare field values. So if you have one of these fields, say in extended cost, you want to compare it to freight amount and put a condition, you can do that. You can go to compare two different field values on this. And here we have our maintenance. Okay, so now this, basically we have set this up. This is the first step where the purchasing requisition is greater than or includes. And actually, I'm sorry, this should be following vendor selection, but we've given it 8 hours. We've assigned it to Phyllis. We only need one response. And we want to apply the workflow calendar. There wasn't any need to send messages because we've already set those up. And that, my friends, is our workflow. And this is how it goes. We're going to send notifications. We're going to allow approver to delegate tasks. And we're going to allow the originator to be an approver. So what that means is Gloria that added the vendor, she could also approve. And if it's overdue, we're not going to do a thing about it. And this is our active workflow. And then once it goes, Gloria selects the vendor, it goes out to manager approval unless it's over $5,000. And then it would have to go to Sarah for approval. And basically, that's it. But we still have more. Now, this is where we take it into the documents and how we add it. Once workflow is activated, it creates a toolbar up here for the workflow. So once it's activated, you have certain actions that you can do from up here. If I hit submit, and you'll see that in just a minute, you'll get a list of actions, and you can create a comment, which is shown over here prior to submitting. So if you click submit, you're requesting approval. And you can add to the next approver, you can add a note, and this stays with the workflow. Next, you've got workflow history. Here you can automatically, and let me show you where that is. I forgot to do that. Here's workflow history. Can barely see it. I think I've got something that's a little bit clearer, but anyway, you can go to workflow history and you can see anything and every step that has been taken here with this workflow. You can see where it is. It's been submitted, but we've got two vendors that two approvers that are looking to, that have not approved it yet. So at any point you can see where it is in the workflow history. And here, once it goes through the process, now we're going to switch roles. Now we are the approver. The approver, this is your workflow approver actions. They can pull up the document, go to workflow, and approve, reject, or delegate. They can also view history, any history of the workflow to see where it is. Also, too, if you look here, I think I've got it on the next slide. Okay. Also here on the home page and the navigation list, you'll see all of your workflows that you need to pay attention to, that need your attention. So on your home page, you will see this once you add this task to your home page. Got navigation list. Oh, by the way, on your home page, you can click on these and approve them from your home page. They made it easy. And here on the navigation list, under purchasing your navigation list, you'll see everything that you need to approve. And you can approve it from here. Also, too, one of the things that they've added is you can attach documents to the workflow. So say you're doing a requisition, but the next approver's never even seen that requisition. You can actually physically attach a document from the employee that was requesting the item. You can attach it here, and it will flow through, always through the flow process and stay with the document. So this is the same aspect as attaching to the transaction itself, but this is at the workflow level. So say Ian attached information to the requisition, Thomas got it, he wants to know more about it. He can just click on the attachment and see exactly what he's approving. And you can also have different attributes. You can say, you've got different ways to allow it to go from the master records to the documents. Here, you can send the attachments in email, or it can be in the body. You can delete it from the location that you have set up for those attachments to save to. You can delete it after it's been attached. And it's got quite a bit of size. And if you want to set up a password to keep people from deleting it, you certainly can do that. Now, one thing that's really, really important, when you go to design your workflow, you have quite a few things that you could ask, like how often is this going to start it? Who else going to approve it? Who needs to participate in this workflow? What are the steps? Who would be the final approver? And what is the delegation process if it's needed? So you have to really think through. There's more questions. What do we do if it's overdue? What do we do if someone's on vacation? So for each user, you can set up a person to delegate it to, or you can set up a final approval. But these are things that need to be thought out before you ever start creating your workflow. And if you don't think it through before you start doing it, and I know this from history, this is experience talking, if you don't sit down, take the time to discuss it with the team and come up with the process, once you start creating it, you'll just end up going back to the square one. It's because it just really needs to be thought out. If you draw a picture, a diagram will help you understand the steps, the transition from step to step, who needs to be in the steps, what are the conditions of each step, and then you can brainstorm the entire process. And if you do that, it makes it 10 times easier and less time to get these things together. And here's an example of a workflow diagram. Here is where Ian would create the requisition. Then it would go and create a purchase order. Then it would say, is the value greater than 1,000? If it is, yes, then submit it to the department manager. And if it's rejected, if the department manager says no, then it's rejected. If they say yes, and the value is higher than 10,000, then it's going to have to go over to the department approver, who can approve it or reject it. If it's no, and it goes straight from here, from the manager, then it's approved or rejected by the department manager if it's under the 10,000. At that point, the procurement officer will send the PO to the vendor. So at that point, you have a bona fide PO started at a requisition going through. But as you can see, this really helps you understand by creating a diagram. And please forgive me, I just threw this together. I can see some mistakes now, but this is more or less what I'm talking about, to create a flow so you can see what happens throughout your whole workflow. And basically, we're at the end. Do we have any questions?
If anybody has any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat window right now.
I have a ton of questions. And you can always email me any questions to, I've got my email up here, and there's also a direct line, an office line, and our website, where we're going to post all of these presentations. And I'm giving y'all back some time, just so you know.
Thank you, Diane. You're very generous.
But anyway, so if we don't.
Yeah, any questions?
You always have questions.
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box here.
To thank all of you on behalf of the GP practice for attending today. And I also want to thank our marketing crew, Ash and Thomas, for all of the work they did to put this together. They did a phenomenal job.
Thank you, Diane.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it. And on that note, we thank you for coming. And we will be sending out a survey after the meeting. Feel free to give us some feedback. We appreciate it. If you can help us improve future user group meetings, it should only take about 2 minutes to answer the survey. And we would value that and appreciate that very much. So we'll conclude this June user group meeting, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.